Hello, my name is Minister Darlene Covington, and I am a book writer. And I would encourage you to stop by YouTube and see what we have going on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Beth Garahan, and I'm here to tell you about an important book that will be coming out soon. The title of the book is On the Road to Redemption, Sex, Lies, and Secrets. And the author is Minister Darlene Covington. She's telling about her 17 years at Redemption Church of Christ in Upper State, New York. All of her experiences there were not positive. She was drawn there by God, but a cultic spirit took over some of the leaders, and there began to be control, and she experienced deception and poverty and manipulation. And her children were humiliated and experienced other forms of abuse. She feels that telling her story will help other Christians not to get into the same predicament, and that the adults and children who were hurt will be healed. Darlene, it's so good to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about how you happened to write this book?
Yes, thank you for having me. Well, I guess about 12 years ago, the Lord began to deal with me that I need to write my story, and that's what I did. I wrote my story of being in a cult atmosphere for about 17 years.
How did you happen to come to this church?
Well, my first cousin and I are from Philadelphia, and when I was 18 years old, he told me that it would be a good idea for me to move upstate New York and be a part of his church, which was not a cult at the time, and I decided to move up there and find a job and just be a part of the church.
When did things start to change? How did they change for the worse?
I moved there in 1973. I would say about 2 years after that, they decided that it would be a great idea for all of us to be full-time in the ministry. We started a bakery which was called Goodway Bakery, and some of us, most of us I should say, quit our jobs. We quit our jobs. Some of us had good paying jobs, and some of us maybe were in school, but we all decided we were going to work for the church. And when we decided to work for the church, it got more and more like a business instead of a church. And then it started to have more and more control over what we should do, where we could go, and who we could be around with. We had total isolation pretty much from most churches. We didn't do any fellowshipping, and everything was about our church.
How did you happen to become married and your children? What kind of influence did they have in that?
When I first came up, they introduced me to a young man that was 7 years older than me and told me he should be my husband. Well, how can he be my husband? I don't know him. First of all, he's too old, and third of all, I don't like him. So this was kind of strange, but they put the fear of God in my heart, and they told me that if I didn't marry him, that I would be out the will of God.
Oh. So there was a lot of pressure to conform to their rules and way of doing things. How did they treat the children?
Most of the children were abused in the Christian school. Most of the children were abused if they had behavioral problems.
What kind of abuse was it?
They beat the kids constantly. Some of the children were beaten every day, and you'll just have to read the book to see how they were beaten, but they were beaten horribly.
Was there any sexual abuse or anything?
Yes, there was a lot of sexual abuse. And like I said, if you read the book, I go into more detail about the abuse, but there was a lot of sexual abuse. And I can say there was at least 13 children over time that was raped or sodomized.
Why has no one else come out and complained about this or reported it?
First of all, being at that church, there was a lot of fear instilled in you. You were not permitted to talk against the pastor. You were not permitted to talk against the church. And if you did, they told you that something horrible would happen to you or you would be ostracized. that church practiced a code of silence. A code of silence is when you keep everything a secret, whether it's good or bad, within your own little community. It's almost like the police have a code of silence and other organizations. This is what we did.
So what do you hope to be gained by this book when people read it? What do you hope will be the result of it?
I would hope that many people who have been hurt and wounded and scarred will come back to God and realize that God has not done these things to them, that it was the church leaders. And I do pray that as you come back, that you forgive those leaders and let God deal with them. Also, I encourage you to pray and ask God to lead you to a church that is not a cult church. If you are already in a type of church like that, run. My encouragement to you is run. Run out the door and don't look back.
Thank you, Darlene. This is very important advice, I feel. An important book. We are planning a book party to tell more about the book, and we wanted to invite our viewers to it on July 23rd at 7 p.m. This is a Saturday in Columbia, Maryland, and Oakland Mills Village Teen Center. Please join us. There'll be entertainment and refreshments and more information about the book. That's July 23rd, Saturday at 7 p.m., Teen Center in Oakland Mills Village, Columbia, Maryland. Thank you so much. We appreciate your prayers.